So when someone is dying and he's continuing his evolution, you still have your parents, your family, your DNA, you descend from a particular lineage. And in India, people know their lineage for thousands of years. They know, especially those who are born in spiritual families, they know their Gotra, Kasta, Parivara, which means from which community, which background, which family they came from. And they keep track of that for thousands of years. So modern people, due to the world we live in, immigration, we don't really know so much about our grandparents. We lost that memory. But that memories remain in our DNA, which remains in our astidhatu, in our bones, because mainly the archaeologists, they pick up this DNA from bones, and they will tell you, actually you descend from Middle East, but you have 30% of European blood, you also have some Persian blood, which really, for a lot of us, is discovery. But what we should know, besides just DNA, in our physical body, just like this matryoshka, Russian doll, that one fits inside another one, soul has many settled covers. And those settled covers, they have the memory of our previous deeds, which family we came from. It's almost like a huge track record, let's say, from a credit agency. And nowadays Google and Facebook, they collect all the information for your big data. And with this big data, they be able to track not only what you've done, is also what you want. What is your desires in the future? That's called like shopping prediction or action prediction, which basically recreate the principle of karma. But the principle of karma is a cosmic principle, much more sophisticated. So there's a whole track of record of what you've done in many previous lives, who you are, what your relatives are. That's an interesting way. So when we start improving, we're adding this improvement to our lineage. In other words, if we become sage, if we become yogi, purified soul, liberated soul, true to our karmic connection, we can even save people around us. Therefore, it says, if you become enlightenment, the whole world will become enlightenment, which means not only people who's in present connection with you, but your previous grandfathers, grandmothers, or the future generations, which will, let's say, read your book or hear your glory, they will get benefited. Therefore, it says, very important in the Vedas is to continue spiritual path, which means bhakti yoga. And even if you're not achieved the highest perfection in this life, you'll be granted chance to do that in the next life. But if you in this life achieve a particular level of perfection, it says it will translate to all that those in your circle of consciousness, which means your families, your friends, etc. So you can purify them, you can pray for them, you can purify them with your divine energy. It's an amazing news for us. Just like grandfathers and grandmothers working and thinking, oh, I like this house for my future generation, or like this wealth for my future generation. Therefore, also spiritual wealth that we inquire can be shared and translated and transferred to others. And the power of spiritual wealth is you never get wasted. The spiritual wealth, as much as you can accept, it will be yours forever, and you can share with others. So it is important for us to be able to understand the true wealth is the wealth of consciousness. Spiritual wealth, divine wealth, it's come from the Vedas as a knowledge, but once we transmit through our own consciousness, through practice, it's become truly process. And I give you an example. Let's say you have $100 in your pocket, but you never spend it. What's the use of this $100? You just have it in your pocket. But when you buy food, when you buy things, then you're realizing what is the $100 worth today. So same as, let's say you have in your shelf many spiritual books, but you never read them. Or if you read them, you never practice what says in those spiritual books. That means you're not realizing your wealth. So spiritual knowledge is wealth, but the way you invest this wealth, the way you spend this wealth, the way you execute this wealth in action, that's what's important. So we're not talking about just intellectual spiritual idea. We're talking about practicing spiritual life at every breath, at every moment, at every action. It has to reciprocate what you've learned, what you understood, how you're moving in the world. And it's not an easy thing to do. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, but don't worry. Mistakes is one of the things that you can correct. Self-adjustment, self-correction, not glorification, not egoistic understanding what the self is, it will not help you. You may think you're an amazing person or call yourself an amazing person, but everybody else have to conclude that around you. So be humble, be tolerant, and learn how to correct yourself. That is the important part of spiritual progress. Don't try to glorify yourself. Here in America, everybody trying to glorify itself. It's a very self-glorifying culture. In East, people are more humble. They expect that people glorify them. They will not glorify themselves because it's considered to be uncultured. But here in model culture, because you're trying to sell yourself, sell your services, you always say, I'm great with this, I'm great with that, I'm such an amazing person, I'm such a this, I'm such a that, which is just for the people that follow spiritual tradition, show you're not very humble. And people like the true inner developed people. Because when you meet with master of martial arts, real master, number one conclusion, you will feel his power. He doesn't have to glorify himself. He doesn't have to show you Kung Fu. In fact, mostly he will not going to show you anything. But in a particular moment, he can reveal and express himself in Kung Fu. But normally he would be humble, tolerant. And you can say, if I start acting like this, people will abuse me. No. If you have inner dignity, if you have inner respect, inner love, not outer respect, not outer love, inner, because you have to become inner human, not look like human, not look like smart because you have glasses, not look like rich because you have a car which you're paying for. Your true wealth comes from inside. So if you internally develop being, even if you dress as a monk or maybe as a yogi have no dress, people will feel your internal wealth just looking at your eyes, hearing a word from you. So let's move from that external position to internal position, which also will help us to be confident in this external world.